Hey, so this is the Generation 3 of the disaster area DPC-5. And I want to, this is not going to be 5 minutes. 5 minutes is just what my series is called, so sorry. But maybe each section will be 5 minutes. How about that? That'll sort of count. And I don't want to do 3 videos. So I'm going to put links at the bottom. And what I'm going to try and do is explain in 5-ish minutes, if I can be brief, each section of the pedal. So the first one will be what this thing is and kind of what all it can do as far as I know. I will say that I use probably most of the functions of this pedal, but not all of them. So there's that. The next one, I'll sort of explain how to do, like roughly how to do all that stuff. And the last one, I'll run through the menu structure. I might not even do that. I don't know. I'll run through it as best as I know how. There's really good resources out there for that, but just in case you want to get an idea all in one video. So this is all intro and it doesn't count. And I'm doing it without pedals connected on purpose, partly for the shot so you can see everything better and more up close. So that's that. On to what this box is. What this box is what it is a controller that will, it acts like a normal looper with your ins and outs. It's a 5-channel looper, but it will, with like a tuner out and an expression out and a couple extra outs that we'll get into, that also will control up to 4 MIDI devices if it's Gen 3. Well, this one only exists in Gen 3. And expression and all kinds of that stuff. And so the biggest question I had about this was, wait, so I can control, I can turn on and off MIDI devices and regular, any old pedal that's in a loop, all with one button? The answer is yes. This will do that, which is pretty awesome and game-changing, especially for how small and compact the thing is. So that's in essence what it can do. It can control all of that stuff with single clicks via making presets for each one of those things. It can also replace, like if you had a smart clock that Disaster Area does, or like a time traveler, I think, or something similar that can send tap tempo to multiple devices. It can do that. It can also control functions on an amplifier, like onboard reverb and tremolo. It can trigger those things. It can act, as in the latest firmware from July of 2017 or June of 2017, it can act as a host, a interface for your, like if you have Strymon or pedals like that where you need to connect to your computer to use software, this can now be the interface between your computer and those pedals, which is also really awesome. There's a buffer built into it. It does a lot. I've probably forgotten a few things, but that'll give you an idea of what this does. Now, as far as how it works, I'll tell you, I don't use the clock section of this. It's something you can enable in the menus. I have it turned off right now, and I think that's a whole other page of this device. So I'm not going to cover that because I don't use it. So I would just be making up stuff. But what I can cover is the majority of what this is used for, which is the other functions. And so there's 3 kind of pages that you get to by holding this button. You'll see these labels around the buttons are kind of confusing, but once we get into it, it makes sense. In parentheses is all of the what happens if you press and hold the button in certain areas. So right now we're in preset mode, or on the preset kind of page where everything on here has to do with controlling your presets. If we hold one over, we'll go into device mode, which controls all your MIDI devices on this page. And then the next one is, I think they call it manual mode, but like foot switch mode, where it is a straight ahead looper. And so that's the easiest thing to cover, so we'll cover that first. So here you have labels for all the buttons, loop 1 through 5, that control to the in and outputs of all these. True bypass looper, just like any other. You go out from the input to your pedal, and then from the output back in here, and that creates a loop that this one sits in. And it's triggered by pressing this switch that turns on whatever pedal's in that loop. This lights up, so if you're on another page in the device, you can see that loop 1 is active, whatever you have in there. Pass MIDI mode again, and then go back to looper mode where we just were. You can turn loop 1 on and off. You can also name whatever this is if you want, and it'll display really quick what's in there. So for me, I have a super bolt in the first loop, And so it tells me, and there's multiple characters you can put in there to edit that name. And so you can name that if you want, and that's all that there is to this page. It's just a straight ahead looper. We'll skip preset mode and do that last because that's where all the magic happens. And we'll jump over back to MIDI mode, or they call it device mode. So in setup, you can tell it how many devices you have, A, B, C, and D, that the max is 4, but you can tell it how many that you have. And then you tell it what kind all those are. And then this page lets you, this button will let you cycle through all your devices, A, B, C. And this is looper mode, which you can also enable or disable. I have a timeline, and so I use this to control the looper on the timeline. You could do that with an H9 or whatever. So this just cycles all the way through whatever devices you set up. So I have A, B, C, and a looper. Device A looks different because it's set up in the menu to be a chase bliss pedal. So these little icons here will tell you that these buttons just cycle through the presets. That's all they do, up and down. And then this button is always your bypass button. So it just tells you if that device is engaged or not. So if you saw my chase bliss pedal here, the light would come on and off as I press this button. So if I go to B, which I have set up to be a timeline, I can turn it on and off the same way. I can bank up and down. Bank 35 A and B, 36 A and B. C is a big sky, same thing. I'm in bank 22 ABC, 23 ABC, turn it on and off. That's what MIDI mode does. This whole page, this whole section is basically a replacement for your DMC type pedal. If you had a disaster area pedal that just controlled your MIDI devices, this does what those pedals do in effect. So that's how you change the current state of all your devices without touching them. All your MIDI devices is all controlled from here. So we'll go mode back to foot switch mode, which you remember is just our straight ahead looper. And then we'll go back to preset mode where all the magic happens. Preset mode has banks. You can set how many of them in the setup this will scroll through. It always starts at 0, and inside each preset there are 4 kind of presets. So in bank 0, there's 4 presets. Up here in bank 1, there's 4 presets. And you'll see you can name each preset, and you'll see different loops are engaged in manual mode for that preset, and then you'll see that different devices are engaged as well. I have this set up for 4 presets, so it will cycle from preset 0 or bank 0 to 3. So there's 4 banks, and each, like say you had a 4-song set, this is just how I do it. And then each bank has presets that you can name, like I said, and they will enable and disable different pedals as you want to, and different patches on your MIDI devices. So the way you do that is pretty simple. All you do is it basically saves, like to save a preset, you press and hold save right here. It'll flash, you tell it which one you want. You can even go to a different bank, preset 3, or bank 3 preset B, because they're A, B, C, D here. And if I like that, then I'll hit save again. It'll give me an opportunity to rename this preset if I want, which you can also turn on and off in the menus. And then you press and hold again to save that preset. It's as simple as that. So all you have to do is you just change the current state to whatever you want it to be and save that in the preset. So you might start with device mode. You'd be like, okay, my chase bliss pedal, I don't need that. My device B is a timeline. I want my timeline on, and I want bank, whatever. And your timeline screen would be changing however you named those presets along with this. Big sky, let's say I want the big sky off, so we'll turn that off in this preset. So, and nothing with the looper. So A is off, B is on this bank, C is off. Then we'll jump over to the foot switches. Let's say I want 4 of my 5. Let's say I want it like that. I want loops 1, 2, 4, and 5 on for some reason in this preset. Back to preset mode, you'll see it's telling me those are the loops that are active. the MIDI mode page is still set the way we set it with device C off. And so then we'll just press and hold. Let's save this in position C in this bank. Fine with the name, press and hold again. It'll say save. Now with one switch in whatever preset we're in, I don't remember where we are. I think we're in 3, yep. So if I press B, it's going to go back to that, which is loop 1 engaged and nothing else. And then on this screen you can see it's device C is engaged, device A is bypassed, device B is engaged. And then again, foot switch number 1 in the looper is engaged. But then when we press this one where we saved our other preset, you've got 4 loops active. And this screen has the bank we chose on device B, C is bypassed, and A is bypassed. So you can see how many things you can do. It's crazy. And so that's kind of the power of preset mode, and really like all the horsepower of what this thing can do. So then we'll go into the setup. The setup is extensive. I forgot to mention that I think I said that there's an expression switch, and then this one, like I said, can control amp functions. This one's called a multi-jack that can do a lot of things like a foot switch, or it can be used to control a chase bliss pedal. It does lots of different things, which you can change in the setup. And then this one has an expression. You can connect an expression pedal or roller there, like I said, but this one happens to have a wheel on it that you can control expression to any or some combination of your MIDI devices with this wheel as well. You can choose whether or not the screen says this. So anyway, setup mode. So we'll unplug. When you plug in, it's going to kind of tell you about the pedal, and as it's scrolling all its stuff, you'll hold A and B, and that will get us into setup mode. That also displays the firmware revision. So 101D is the most updated one at the time of recording. So here's setup mode. There's a bajillion options that you cycle through with your left and right here, and then you can go into each one. So I'm going to try and do this from memory because I've used most of these, but not all of them. And like I said, there's good resources for just this. But this is just if you want one video to get a rough idea of everything that it can do. So in here, when you boot up, if you go into preset, it'll let you select how many presets you want. You can get, it looks like, up to 32 different banks of 4 presets each that's set up on this thing if you want there to be. And that's how many it will scroll through in preset mode. Like I said, I was set on 3, so I was scrolling through 4. But let's say I'm, playing some really long thing, and let's say I'm playing like 10 songs. We can set it to 10 and come back out. So we're going in preset. It's set that way. We're coming out. That's what that is. Moving on to the next one. This is devices. This sets up how many devices you have. So if I have all 4 MIDI devices, I'd set this to D. If I only had 1, it'd be A, and so on. I'm going to leave it on C, because that's where it was. I'm actually going to go back to preset mode and change that back to where I had it as well for now. Then here, you go through all of the devices. So we had set up 3, and then you get to go in here and you tell it what each of your devices is. That actually said it's an Empress Echo system. I just updated the firmware, and so that won't be right anymore. And so you basically, Empress Reverb, DD-500, and you get to scroll here through whatever, all the different devices that this is set up to work for, which is pretty much everything. Source audio, I didn't even know it worked with source audio. That's awesome. Line 6 stuff. You get the idea. I'll actually have to go in here and reset all these things, it appears. But you do that with each device in preset mode. You tell it what kind of device it is, and that's just so when you're in device mode, it displays rightly. Because, if you set it to be a timeline, it's going to have the bank and then the A and B patches, A, B, and C for a Big Sky. Like Chase Bliss doesn't have multiple banks, it just has presets, that kind of thing. That's what that's for. So we'll scroll past A, B, C, and D because there's max 4 that you can set up. This menu option loop controls what the looper is, and it's, you know, which device has your looper on it. If you want to control the looper with this, you specify that here. Buffer is if the onboard buffer is on and off. Pop filter is if you get a lot of like pops when you engage one of your loops back here, then you can change this thing to be off or like a low, medium, or high, where it kind of briefly mutes the channel. So if you get a lot of popping issues, they have a way where you can fix that. Tuner, this tells what happens. I think this tells you if you have a tuner attached to one of your MIDI devices, like built in. I think some of them have one. You can tell it which device that is. Expression, this controls where expression comes from, I think. I have it set to the roller, but you could set it to some other stuff too. I hope that's what that was. Okay. And then kind of like the channel for your expression, this is where you specify which devices you want to control with your expression wheel roller thing. Jack controls what you want your multi-jack to do. I want mine to be MIDI. It controls what channel that is. All this is like stuff that's in the manual. This is the controller 1 and 2, which is this one that can control amp functions. You can tell it based on what your amp function is in the manual. It tells you how to set that to control those things. Oh, so that EXP must have been this one. Roller is what you want your roller to be, and mine is set for expression. Here you specify which devices that you want your roller to control, kind of thing. I don't actually remember what this one is. It's something with the oh, right, this is that display. So when I move the roller, it displays numbers. Doesn't do that right now, but I thought that was cool, so I turned that on. I don't remember what that is. That's the clock mode, which I have disabled. I don't know what that is either. So super. This is the brightness of the display, which is helpful. You can change how bright the display and the lights are. So if you're playing in crazy bright environments, you can still see it. And if you're crazy dark, you don't scorch your retina. This is something they just added, so I don't actually know what that is. This will control if like how many, if you name your presets or the things, like how many things it'll display, because the screen holds 4 characters, so if you want to scroll the names or whatever. This is if you want to name your banks. I turned that off, but you can name your every bank if you want, instead of it just saying P00, P01, all that stuff. You can name your loops like I showed you with your foot switch. You can use it as a USB interface. This like protects your presets to where you can't overwrite them. I think you dump the memory, reset factory stuff, and that's pretty much everything. Press and hold to save, and you're back in your regular mode to do everything that you set up. So anyway, I think I was probably pretty close to 5 minutes per section. And that should give you just an idea in one video like what this box is and what all it can do for you, which is a lot. So anyway, always open to questions in the comments if you want to leave any of those. I can explain anything further if that's helpful, but there's a lot of good, there's at least some good resources that they've put out for especially in-depth on the menus and the firmware and all that stuff. But that's quite enough for now. So I will put the link to Disaster in the description as usual, and feel free to subscribe if you want to spend 5 minutes per section, mind you, with some more gear, then you can do that. So, bye.